Welcome to Exploring the AI Rainforest, the podcast where we explore the intersection of finance, crypto, reputation, and AI. A quick note before we start. At Zero, we've built something that solves a problem every crypto user faces. Your wallet has a reputation. Protocols are already tracking your behavior, but you're not getting credit for it. That's why we created Zscore and Zpass. Zscore measures your on-chain reputation. Zpass turns it into real money. Lower fees, higher yields, better deals across DeFi. Mint once, unlock thousands in savings. If you're tired of being treated like a bot when you're a real user, visit zpass.ai and get on the whitelist. Now, let's get to today's guest. Today on Exploring the AI Rainforest, we are joined by Oleg Golev, Technical Product Manager at Sentient, a company building open, decentralized infrastructure for community-driven AGI. We're going to explore how Oleg and the Sentient team are bringing We're going to explore how Oleg and the Sentient team are bridging AI and Web3, and how these technologies might reshape financial systems, privacy, and the way we build on-chain intelligence. Oleg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
That's great. So we always like to start with getting back to your roots a little bit. So to begin, can you walk us a little bit through your education in computer science at Princeton, your early professional experience, and eventually what led you to the role of technical product manager at Sentient?
Sure, absolutely, no problem. So I got my bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science at Princeton. I originally was going to do mathematics, and soon after I realized I don't actually like mathematics in the theoretical sense. I like to solve problems and I like to get down and dirty with things. And so I quickly switched to first financial engineering. I was going to be a quant trader. I had some experience working for a small proprietary quant shop. And then I ended up in computer science because, believe it or not, all the financial engineering and quant classes at Princeton are not that great. So I ended up in computer science.
Okay.
Still really great opportunities there. I very quickly got interested in distributed systems, did some research there. I did some research in human computer interaction, was always engaged in cryptography, security, and then most lately, because there was all the hype, AI, originally with traditional ML, and then moving into large language models, now working primarily with large language models here at Sentient. So transitioning from being this distributed systems architect kind of experiences at D Shaw at the quant shop and other startups now to Sentient, where I'm managing product, has been a pretty smooth one. And I think the breadth of my experience has really helped understand what it takes to build frontier AI.
Okay. I want to ask a follow-up question about your classes at Princeton. I
Sure.
mean, that's an Ivy League university, from my understanding. Like, obviously, it's really, really well known, world renowned, good reputation overall in terms of education, professors available, research, etc. What what about the classes weren't meeting either your expectations or maybe your future employer's expectations?
No, nothing about future employers at all. In fact, I would say a lot of the classes were pretty industry grounded. Um, a lot of other classes were very theoretical. I mean, it is Princeton prides itself in being more theoretical than equivalent schools. In fact, there's a joke that goes around in some departments. You know, if you want this stuff applied, then you should have gone to a technical school like a polytech. And like this is this is a little bit not not very nice
Right.
because you get a lot out of learning theory, yes, but that's what was missing for me. Like that bridge from theory to practice sometimes was not satisfied in the classes. Not that the theory wasn't relevant to my future career prospects. So a lot of classes focused on theory. A lot of them were um, very quote unquote boring in that way for me. And so in the financial engineering department, I thought, maybe I'll just take a few classes from this department that I think I'm most interested in, mostly around probability, options pricing, and actual financial engineering, rather than some of the like extra theoretical stuff that I had to take. And then I'll major in computer science instead. So it was just a balance of making sure that I study only the things that I care about. I do also know that some people, not personally, but some of my friends know such people that have committed to the easiest study plan that is possible to get a degree, all the while studying quant trading. And they go and happily go and become well-paid quant traders after graduation. And if you look at their resume, no impressive classes, no nothing. They kind of coasted through school, but it's because they were quote unquote grinding outside of classes on their own. The one most important thing that university teaches you, or at least should teach you, is how to learn, and how to learn quickly, not what you learn.
Right. Okay. That's fair. I didn't get a university degree. I went to, I think what you guys call community college in the United States, but we call applied colleges of arts and technology here north of the wall. And, I got a 3-year diploma. I came out as a trained system administrator and network administrator. I could build networks, systems, Active Directory, Linux based, whatever. Set up a whole corporate network from scratch, which was terrific. I actually understand how DNS works, which a lot of people don't. But on the other hand, yeah, no, I didn't go in there getting a bunch of theory. Obviously, learning how to learn, sure, yeah, no problem. Learning theory or learning to like think ahead, develop new products, no, that was obviously not my focus. But no, that's cool.
I'm sure you had a field day with the AWS East One outage recently.
No, I heard the full explanation of what happened, and I went, yeah, yeah, I could see that. Very unfortunate, and yes, obviously DNS related in this case, and it's unfortunate, but like it's just one of those beasts that it works, and nobody across all the companies and universities and nonprofits who help make sure the internet runs it really wants to take a crack at like fixing, right, quote
Don't touch
unquote.
it. It
Yeah,
works. Don't
it,
touch
it's not broken, don't touch it, we know how to manage it. Yes, it's a little thorny sometimes, but like it works. It just like email. When was the last time email got like a major standard upgrade that everybody adopted? Very long time ago. It's just one of those ancient technologies that was designed really well, could be upgraded, but you know, very low, or I guess high risk and potentially low reward, right? So yeah, it is the way it is. Okay, so I want to focus more on Sentient now. The teams at Zeru and Sentient have been talking for a few months. I actually went to go try the Sentient chat today. Thanks for that referral code. I'm gonna go try that probably this afternoon. I want to run it through its paces and see what it can do for me. But Sentient, the organization, describes itself as building community-built AGI. How would you define that vision, and how does your role as technical product manager translate into the real world infrastructure and the workflows that you guys are building and enabling?
Yeah, good question. So let's start with the mission of Sentient. I think it puts a lot of things into context. The mission of Sentient is that AI cannot be contained, controlled, and, well, densely concentrated within one entity. It is AI is so powerful of a technology that that should not be the case. AI should be decentralized, and AI development should be decentralized in a way that the products of that work actually go back to the community and enable anybody transparent and equitable access. Right now, what we see with OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, these are closed labs. Meta used to be, producing these open source models, and now they're out of the game for that. But what we see is we have all of these closed labs. They are competing uh, amongst each other and amongst some open labs in China to produce the next frontier of AI. But that development that we're seeing from these large corporations is very centralized and extremely extractive. And so when you look at every single release that happened just from OpenAI in the past 2 months, they released Apps SDK, they released Agent Kit, they released Atlas, they released Pulse. Every single release is never going to benefit any of the actual community members in the way that it cannot be customized. You cannot see what is happening with your data. You cannot self-deploy it. You cannot go and contribute to it in a way that you can then get rewarded. Obviously, you have to just go and get hired by OpenAI, and then you're on their payroll, and all the intellectual property is theirs. And this kind of lack of this is what lack of community building looks like. And so the world, just the way that the world deserved uh, Linux all the way back when Windows and Mac OS were growing, and people needed an open source alternative where they could self-host, they could have full transparency, and there were entire a developer ecosystem, not around just one project, but these tiny sub projects and distributions and specific packages that were used in different Linux distributions. There would be a giant developer community just focusing on that, because that is something that you can customize, that is something that you can go and precisely deploy for your use case. You get privacy, you get transparency. And what we're doing here at Sentient is something similar. We want to create an environment that we're calling grid, an ecosystem of developers, of what we call artifacts, these open source repositories, like packages of Linux, that people come and contribute to and work on. And we, as the protocol, also provide the incentive system and the ownership distribution system that allows people to properly feel like they are getting the ownership and contribution attribution that is fair, based on what they've done for the repository and for the ecosystem, and have that ecosystem grow in a long-term sustainable manner. Right now, Sentient has already done an amazing job reaching out to open source developers, including very large projects like Composio, which is an external application integration tool that is used by everybody, including OpenAI, actually. And we reached out to players like Confident AI, because they have an open source deep eval platform for evaluating AI models and AI agents. And we have about, obviously these are just two examples, and I can keep naming them, but there's a dozen of these partners that we're talking to that are committing. Some of them already have committed, and some are in discussion, committing to be part of this grid ecosystem, such that we together create this developer experience and this incentive flywheel, such that people can come, develop, and actually beat some benchmarks and beat closer slabs at something. We have recently released Roma, which is an abbreviation for Recursive Open Meta Agent. Roma is state-of-the-art framework for dynamic decomposition and recomposition. It is a recursive agent in that it takes tasks, breaks them down into smaller pieces dynamically, keeps going until you break the tasks into what we call atomic tasks. That means that you can execute them very cleanly and you get a very precise answer. And this framework allows anybody to build agents that are less susceptible to problems like context rot and context overloading, are much more focused in how they gather, interpret, and condense answers. And for any long horizon tasks, for example, if I want to do very, very deep research or very deep analysis of something, are probably the number one approach. Probably the best approach is these recursive agents. We've gotten great traction with Roma. We've built a prototype called Roma Deep Research that is state of the art on different search benchmarks, beating players like OpenAI and Perplexity. And we're currently working with a few labs to start up concrete collaborations to see if we can drive Roma on other verticals also, and see how far we can push this recursive agent idea. I'd love to talk a little more about recursive agents, maybe a little later in the call. I know I've been talking for a while, but it's actually quite a powerful emerging topic in the space of AI research, and what the frontier of AI reasoning looks like at the moment. But to go back to your question, the summary is simple, and that is, we are building the grid, which is an ecosystem of all of these open source projects and developers. And what we're building is a self-sustaining flywheel that enables us to keep up with these closed source projects and take all of these repos and combine them into powerful AI applications that anybody can self-deploy, sell the hosted versions under the open source monetization model, and get the traction from those artifacts back into the ecosystem and reward the developers and the artifact owners for their work.
Okay, that's a lot.
You
Okay,
can take the transcript and you can throw it into Sentient chat and ask it to summarize if you would like.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So, okay, sentient chat. Maybe we'll do some analogies here. Maybe not analogies. Comparisons just to level set things for people. So, let's start with Roma. So, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but Grok famously a little while ago released this feature or functionality where you ask it something and it'll kind of, I think you just said, break it down, have a bunch of different agents work on it, bring those answers back together, and then spit it back out at you. Is that, as long as you know what I'm talking about, is that similar to how Roma works, and you're saying that Roma's still better at that, or is that a completely different paradigm in terms of that task breakdown?
So what you usually see and what you see in Grok is what I would call iterative agents, and that's what we've been used to for a very long time. I would say the only recursive agents that have appeared that I know of, I'm sure that there are more, but a lot of this research really goes under the radar. The only recursive stuff that I've seen is ours, which is Roma, a recent release from MIT that have cited us, and we're talking to them also. And the MIT Labs release is called Recursive Language Models, a very similar release, very similar framework. And then there's a third one, which is Samsung released their 7 million parameter model that is a recursive model. It's actually a very interesting way that it works, and I can talk about it later. But that's kind of the space that I see from my end. What's happening on OpenAI's side, on Google's side, on Grok's side, this whole decomposition and agent stuff. You can look at like what you said, where it goes and gives different tasks to different agents. Just the paradigm of how it does it, right? That's the question. So Roma and RLM and these other recursive methods, they essentially do the task decomposition first, right? If the task is not, you know, granular enough for an agent to take over, I'll keep doing that, and then it will give it to an agent. And when the agent is done with it, it will look at the parent node. It will provide the answer to the parent node, and the parent node will decide whether to decompose again. That is, whether the agent has done a good job or not. And then so this kind of workflow is isolated to these subtrees of the reasoning tree. So that is how Roma approaches it. And the RLM paper that was released by MIT after ours also uses a similar approach. These are recursive methods. The methods of Grok, Google, OpenAI are different because they're iterative methods. They still functionally work as a simple loop rather than a recursive tree or a recursive graph like structure. An iterative approach means you have a problem and you reason about it. You kind of make a plan of all of the different components that you need to hit, and then it goes and fills in those. Basically, it has a planner, and then it goes and executes different steps of the plan in a loop. And after each execution, if again similar ideas, just different structure. If this part of the plan was given to an agent and the agent returned the result and the result is not good, it will go and modify the plan. It will keep thinking about the plan and all the data that it has, keeps reasoning, and then 2-3 minutes later, you get a good answer. And so essentially, you just have one kind of pad of planning, and you keep iterating over it and keep getting more data and reasoning over it until you get enough info to finally give the final answer. This is what an iterative approach looks like. However, there's a lot of problems with such an approach. The first problem is what people call context rot. And context rot is not only relevant to AI agents, it is relevant more generally to AI workflows. So I'll give you an example of an AI workflow. Let's say that you're building, let's say you're building like a sentiment analyst workflow, sentiment analysis workflow.
Okay.
You go ahead and you scrape all the data from a certain X handle, let's say a project that you're interested in, and then you look at all of the different founders or team members of that project, and you scrape their X handles also, and then you go and depending on that information, you go and decide whether to do more searches or scrape other handles and so on and so forth. So as you're going through this workflow, what's happening is you're collecting insane amounts of data, and if you actually want to go and summarize all of this data into something actionable and insightful, LLM performance degrades insanely fast the more tokens you try to put into its context window to process. So if I give an LLM, this is the simple example, if I give an LLM a script results from one X page, let's say it's decently small data set, the LLM will be able to look at the whole thing at once and give you some good insights and give you some good summary. Now, if you give it two, then it will start missing points from one or the other, or it will not be able to make comparisons because there's just too much information for it to process. And a lot of the training data is not actually that large. And so as we approach the limits of the LLM's context window, even if it says that it can support such a large context, the LLM performance will still degrade. That's why you see people still using RAG systems, because RAG will only pull out the relevant info, and that the importance there is on the embedder and the chunker and those services, rather than just kind of closing your eyes and praying that the LLM is able to, with all of this data, pick out exactly what's important. It will be able to, pull information that's irrelevant. Sometimes it will, forget some information the other times, especially if you're, taking some data and then moving it to the next stage of the workflow. If you tell the LLM, only pick out things that are important, and then it just kind of leaves things where they were. Or if
Right.
you have a planning step that was generated in the beginning, and that planning step actually becomes invalid. Let's say the LLM makes a plan at the beginning of its reasoning. It makes some assumption A. Then, as it's doing the previous steps and it's doing some thinking about the data that it's acquired from the first few steps, then it goes back to assumption A, and assumption A is actually not correct anymore. Because the LLM's context is so large, it does not notice and does not correct the false assumption. So what you get
Mm.
at the very end is still writing on the false assumption, and your answer is not good. So this context rot problem is, as we go through all of these different steps, and we keep increasing context or keep changing context from step to step, context quality degrades because bad assumptions stay, some data gets forgotten, some new data that is not relevant but seemed relevant because of some weird associations that LLM has seen in a giant pool of data that's not very focused, has been made. And at the end, when you actually summarize the answer for the user, the context that you get is unideal. So that is a big problem in these iterative systems, because they keep this loop going and try to, it takes 5, 6, 10, maybe even more than 10 different reasoning iterations. And during each one of those iterations, it is redigesting and recondensing information. And during each one of those steps, many mistakes can happen, and then they keep propagating all the way to the end. Hence, context rot. That is one very big problem. And as I said earlier, the whole reason it exists is because LLM are not good with dealing lots of volumes of data. And so agents like Roma solve that by decomposition and recomposition. So each atomic task is very, very small. And when you fold the results up to the parent of those nodes, the parent only has to look at very limited information that is only relevant to its task and is able to condense it again and push it back up until you get a good answer. And we have a proof of concept that it works, because our Roma deep research is state of the art, as an agentic system using an arbitrary model. And we have not seen similar performance anywhere. It beats Gemini 2.5 Pro. It beats ChatGPT 5. Beats Perplexity. Oh, Perplexity is not even in the picture. It beats Kimi Researcher. Kimi Researcher is another big one from China who are building this reasoning systems. So there's a lot of promise, and it might actually be quite a gigantic area, because not only can it solve the problem of context draw over these long tasks, but it also may help us amplify small language models. You can think of a 7B model or an 8B model being very incapable. I mean, the benchmarks are usually quite bad on those. But imagine putting it in a framework like this, where you now give a small model a very small task. So as long as the model is good at doing these small tasks or doing the summarization bit, then you severely reduce the amount of work and also amount of context that the model has to deal with. And so you should be able to get 7B or 8B model to perform as good as a trillion parameter model, even without fine tuning. And that's kind of the great promise of these recursive structures.
I want to ask about two things just to further, differentiate at a, I guess, a stack level, the differences between Sentient and a lot of the closed source ones you've mentioned. Is that like where's the infrastructure running all this? It sounds like maybe it's a decentralized physical infrastructure network, DPIN.
You can run it. It doesn't
Sorry?
matter where it runs. It doesn't matter where it runs. It's all open source. So that's the commitment that Sentient wants to make. Sentient makes the commitment that everything that they produce will be open source. So if we look at Roma, it's open source. I mean, I'm saying that it's a state-of-the-art system. You don't have to go and pay for it. It's right there. Go
Right.
and do whatever you want with it, host it on whatever you want. I don't care, actually. I just care that it exists, and AI research, like Sentient as an AI research lab, is contributing to Sentient, the protocol, and wants other people to do the same.
Okay. So, but what about like end user products or these betas, whatever you want to call it, like Sentient Chat? Like where is that running? How is that running? Is that a decentralized model? Like lots of people are running the hardware that's actually powering Sentient Chat, or do you want to get there eventually?
It doesn't. So the answer to that is the same. It doesn't matter. So Sentient Chat will be completely open source, top to bottom.
Okay.
Sentient Chat is also going to be one of many applications that are in the Grid ecosystem. Right now, the role of Sentient Chat is simple. The role of Sentient Chat is to showcase all of these different models and different frameworks, different artifacts on Grid. Our main product is Grid, the protocol, and the ecosystem. And our main research is contributing to that protocol. Sentient Chat is just one of many applications that people can build on Grid artifacts to prove that they are quite powerful. So Sentient Chat by itself, you can think of, let's say we didn't build it. Let's say somebody else has. Let's say some other company has built Sentient Chat. They have collected all of these artifacts, and they've put them in one package, and they have open sourced it. And where it's running is completely irrelevant. It is the fact that so many people have come together to develop all of the subcomponents, all of the intermediate components, and the application itself that the company is now using and hosting, and they can, let's say it's open source, but the hosted version is paid, and maybe they're selling it to enterprises, selling it B2B. That is completely up to that company. And so I envision that Sentient Chat will just be here for a little bit as an example and a reference for people to go and fork and build their own versions of consumer AI products and build their own companies, starting from something like Sentient Chat. And for now, before that happens, before that ecosystem growth happens, post chain launch, We keep Sentient Chat as a demo for all the different artifacts that we have on grid.
So it sounds like grid is really like the ultimate product here, and everything runs on grid.
Exactly. So if somebody wants to, take Sentient Chat, fork it, and let's say create their own version. Let's say they create something that's more similar to Claude. That let's say it's a coding assistant. So they take Sentient Chat, they change some UI elements, the SDK and the framework we have provided to them because it's all open source. They very quickly can spin up their own company, building whatever coding assistant in this example they want with whatever features they want, etc. And there's will be incentives for them to use from the grid and contribute back to the grid, because if they're listed they will get emissions and they will get support from the community and the ecosystem, and they'll get feedback. There's a lot of benefits for people to fork and stay, and that's the kind of growth that we want. If it is their choice to use one of our partners in the grid who are distributed compute providers, it is completely their choice, and we make that available and we provide the incentives to do that. That is the role and importance of the grid. Grid combines all of these different artifacts you can build with, developers, and also the partners, the people who provide compute, the people who provide APIs and tools, for any company out there or a group of developers or even a solopreneur to come and build something from all of these pieces from the grid in an incentivized manner, create something really good in AI, publish it, and get traction.
Okay. All right. So going back to the question I just asked, so is grid a distributed or decentralized infrastructure network then? Like I see
Absolutely.
partners like Napkin, Eigen, etc. Like they're, and even Eigen itself, to pick one specifically, they are a distributed um, network of providers who all choose to participate in the Eigen network, run AVSs, and now cloud infrastructure and all the rest of they're evolving as well. So it sounds like yes, the software is open source, and as you're saying, I get to choose my compute. I can use the grid network itself. I can go use a different but friendly partner, or run it on my Mac Mini and hope for the best.
Yeah, you can do any of those things. And that's the advantage of Grid. We want Grid to be the largest collection of open source intelligence and also the largest collection of collaborating partners from infra, AI, compute, um, data provision, tooling, and anything in between.
Okay. All right. We spent quite a bit of time on models and Roma. Obviously, and I want to be cognizant of time here and make sure we kind of dive deep into like more of the of like what Sentient's actually building. So,
This is what we're
what about
building. This is quite literally what we're building.
yeah?
And this is, I think, the most important thing. I don't think there's anything that we're building that is most important than what we have at the frontier at the moment and our collaborations on recursive structures from the research perspective. There's nothing more important than Grid itself, where all of our products are coming. Sentient Chat is just part of Grid. Roma is part of Grid. And Grid is the one thing that all of our KPIs are aligned towards, such that we can get all of these developers and all of these contributors in one place.
Okay. So one more, I guess, product related question, and then we'll talk more about like implications and things like that. You guys have your own model. It's a fingerprinted model, the world's first fingerprinted AI model. It's called Dobby.
Yeah.
It's co-owned by 700,000 people.
Yep.
Like, what is Dobby? What does it mean to be co-owned by over 700,000
Sure.
people? Your alignment is pro crypto, pro freedom, which I guess Elon would also say about Grok in terms of
Yeah.
pro freedom, anti censorship. But like, tell us a little bit more about Dobby and the I guess the goals there. Is that also mostly a proof of concept, or is that going to be something that you guys continue to develop as well?
Yeah, this is an amazing question. So a lot of people got really hyped up about Dobby because he's unhinged and he's cool. And there's a huge community on X that is going around and shilling Dobby everywhere, and it's really amazing from our side. But maybe the importance of Dobby, or like what Dobby is actually, is a little bit misconstrued. So let's look at the facts first. Let's say we don't look at any of the higher level ideas. Let's just look at Dobby by itself. Dobby is a family of models. They're unhinged. They're pro freedom. They're crypto native. The training data set that we use to build these Dobby models is particular to the goal. And the W models are based on Llama models. And the big thing that we have proved by building them is that we're able to align a model to any set of beliefs, values, axes without compromising on safety, and also without compromising on benchmarks. So the Dobby models actually retain all of the benchmark performance from the original Llama models. That's one amazing research outcome and research learning that we've had, and we've published about it, and we talked about it with some other AI research leaders, because it's a very hard problem to do this alignment, especially value, without breaking a lot of other things. If you imagine 5 different axes of personality, if I suddenly start messing around with just one of them, all the other 4 are like a kind of a constraint slider. They're also shifting, even though you don't want them to. And so being able to go ahead and say, we've built a model that aligns to these axes, but doesn't touch the performance and doesn't touch safety, is actually a very hard problem.
Right.
So that is one thing. And the second thing is that Dobby is truly an example of um, community collaboration, because we have run what we call Dobby Arena to actually collect the data to train Dobby. So users would come on the arena, they had 2 choices, and they would pick what they prefer, and that becomes the basis for a cleaning data set, and then for our kind of amplified data set later, for us to determine like the final set of training data for the final Dobby version. So Dobby Arena had 8.8 million queries worth of engagement. So it's 8.8 different data points for us to go through and use as training set. And at the end, that amounted to about 700,000 individuals, some of them obviously having contributed more than others. And they have participated in what I think is one of the largest NFT minting events ever, which is more than 700,000 people, um, quote unquote, owning Dobby by owning these NFTs. The other part of Dobby that was important is that it was fingerprinting. Now, fingerprinting is a method we were developing at the very beginning of Sentient's lifecycle. We were developing fingerprinting as a way for people to distribute open weight models and still be able to track them and enforce their ownership. Fingerprints are these secret key value pairs that you embed directly into the weights of the model. So if I have a secret key, secret question, I can ask the model that secret question, and if it answers with the appropriate answer, I know that it's the model that I'm looking for, and I know that it's my model, and I can verify it that way. If I'm giving a different model, then I will know because it doesn't answer with kind of my sanity check key value pair that I have. And so all of the 700,000 plus owners of these NFTs were given such a fingerprint, given such a key value pair. So they can, at any point in time, wherever Dobby is hosted, or if they want to download the model from Hugging Face, they can verify, like, yeah, this is my model. And if it goes anywhere, I can always verify. So this is the 2 things about Dobby, the alignment part and the personality part, and the fingerprinting part. So this is just in isolation has gotten so much traction, but it's actually not not the main thing that we're building. Um, so Dobby is great, but it's only one proof of concept, one prototype of what we internally call the AI alignment training pipeline. And you see a lot of closed source labs like Anthropic specifically talking about it all the time, except in the words of Elon Musk, OpenAI is actually closed AI and Anthropic is misanthropic, and Google is evil, or whatever Elon says, right? Uh, so Anthropic constantly talks about alignment, and that's kind of their big thing. And they were publishing papers about constitutional alignment and stuff like that. And we actually have quite a few papers of our own on the same topic. So we are pushing everything that we have in the open source. And the AI alignment pipeline is also something that we're working on internally. where you can take a model and you can prescribe it programmatically what you want it to believe, what you don't want it to believe, what you want it to say, what you don't want it to say. And you can think about it like a character creation menu where I have all these sliders and you just say what you want and you click go, and then you get a custom model just for you and your community. And it matters because a lot of businesses and enterprises want something like this. They want this customization. And also communities want a model that is able to obey and believe the beliefs of the community. If,
Right.
for example, a model that is supposed to make DAO decisions, let's say we put AI as a DAO voter, it should probably vote with full knowledge and understanding of what the community of the project wants. And that
Right.
is by itself, it should be embedded in the training data and customized through such an AI alignment pipeline. And so that's the actual big thing that we're going for and what Dobby is used to represent.
Okay. That was really cool. I was actually going to say, like, it sounds like you've solved the problem of like trying to make a custom player in EA Sports FC or the NHL games, where it's like you have your spider graph and it's like aggressiveness, shooting, passing, and it's like, yeah, if you start to max out one, the others all can't all be maxed out. You have to choose like the attributes you want to max out for, and you guys are actually trying to like basically make it possible to actually fill out that spider graph. Everything's maxed out, or whatever you want to be is maxed out, and like you could max out on. I mean, I was just thinking you could even make it for a almost like a fan fiction community, and the AI actually reads everything in the fan, all the fan fiction, and you can actually ask it questions, and it's up to date with the latest and greatest, or the most preferred version of the story, or something along those lines. You mentioned DAOs, obviously. Like, it'd be great if it could just read all the sentiment from Discord, from Telegram, from Reddit, from a forum. The um, temperature check forum posts, etc., and vote accordingly based on, or even make recommendations to adjust the original proposal based on this compendium of suggestions and things like that, and agreements. And like, I did that work. I did that work for a DeFi project in 2020, late 2020. And one of my jobs was to make sure the DAO functioned and push people to vote, and push people to actually govern the protocol. And one of the hardest things was taking 25 to 50 different opinions in a forum post and be like, how do we modify this proposal so that it's still amazing, and also takes into account this really good feedback in a timely manner, right? Like, it's like, okay, I've got a day or 2 days, like I can make all these different adjustments, take it back to the team, be like, okay, like, does this line up with what everybody thinks, and do we think this will actually pass, and is this still good for the protocol, etc. Theoretically, an agent could do all that. Yeah, you still want to run it by everybody, obviously, or you do like do a follow up temp check. It's posted by the AI model, by Dobby 2.0 or whatever, DeFi Dobby, and be like, okay, yeah, that's exactly what we were looking for. Great, and it might still not pass with 100% votes, but it is a representation of the feedback and the new ideas and all that, and it passes governance. I mean, like, that's probably a win for most DAOs.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great example. So we can talk about AI alignment for quite a long time, actually. AI alignment is a fascinating thing and also the most misunderstood thing because you can fold anything, even remotely related to AI alignment. So
Right.
AI alignment starts from what you're describing and what I've just described, which is this sentiment, community alignment, values, personality. But it actually, as you can infer quite easily, makes a gigantic impact on safety. So I would even say AI safety is a subcategory of AI alignment. For example, if you have an autonomous agent that is functioning like a hedge fund, um,
you probably want to make sure that it doesn't, and it's taking actions, right? That's actually really dangerous now. It's taking actions. You definitely don't want it to be taking actions like forwarding all the money into a weird random wallet that was given to it through a context injection attack. And we have a paper on what context injection means on Sentient XYZ, Sentient.xyz as well. Um, Context injection is simply where an attacker is able to insert some piece of data into the databases or tools that the AI consumes, and then the AI sees that data and considers it instructions, and it executes it because it's too dumb to proof check it. Um,
Right.
so through context injection, something like this would be possible, where an autonomous hedge fund manager gets some a tool call result or reads some data on the web, and then there is some instruction that says, send money to this wallet. And while it sounds stupid, it actually works. And we said ELISA OS is easily vulnerable to this. Uh, Brave did a study where they said Perplexity's Comet browser is easily vulnerable to it, where it can go in, because it can click for you, right? So it can go in and just get your wallets drained. And the same problem is definitely going to be obvious in Atlas, because it sees your screen, it reads everything on the website, even things that you don't see, and then it's able to go and click and execute and reason through it. So it can go and open your wallet and send things over, or go open your bank account, take screenshots, do whatever. And so that kind of AI safety problems are created because the models are not well aligned towards the use case and towards the kind of prescribed constitution of what they should follow when they're used in a certain environment. So this AI alignment thread is very critical, and also why a whole company like Anthropic is being very vocal about it, even though the products are not too related. So it's a very big problem.
Yeah, no, Anthropic is definitely, and I said earlier in our group chat, like I use Claude. I really like it. Is it perfect? No. Going back to the context window, or not the context window, but the iterative task model you mentioned earlier, like it'll take 5-10 minutes, and it runs into different issues that don't line up with the original scenario and all that, and so you end up with context rot. I actually had a deep research job, go for 2 hours
Wow.
a couple of weeks ago, and it failed. It just timed out. And so I think the answer was no anyway, and I was really hoping the answer was going to be yes, because it was like a really cool company idea, like startup
You
idea.
can
I'm like, I
tell
wonder if we
you
could.
can tell it was trying really hard to find that yes for 2 hours.
Yeah, it tried really, really hard, and like I kept checking every 5 or 10 minutes to like just see where it's at and see the results it had come up with so far, which it's also good at, like creating this whole new side window of like, and here's what I'm thinking, quote unquote, the reasoning that's going through it. And so I ended up, like I said, it ended up going bust. But and I was just curious. I'm like, maybe I should try running it through Roma, just cause. Like I'm quite certain the answer is no. And another person I was discussing the idea with also said, yeah, you can't do that, and here's why. But I was like, well, I've got Claude. Like, I could use the research model, like the deep research function feature, whatever. Like, why? Let's just double check. And I broke
Well,
it. So
I'll say this. I don't think that whether you use Roma or deep research, that you get a different answer if it's truly a no.
no,
but
no, no. I'm almost certainly not going to get a different answer.
I'm sure that you'll get a more concise, insightful, and better answer, and more structured answer with Roma than
Yeah.
Claude Research, and maybe not in 2 hours, maybe in 5 minutes or so.
No, and that's the only reason I would go try it out. I just want to see like what I actually get. Even just a one pager of
Yeah.
like, you can't do this, and here's why. Sorry, and it doesn't need to say sorry, obviously, but like, hey, cool idea, but it's not going to work, and here's the legal realities about why it won't work. And it was certainly nothing unethical. It was more like, I'm really frustrated about electronic health records and how non-portable they still are, even though they were supposed to be portable here, like a decade ago. and the government has spent billions and billions of dollars on it. And I thought to myself, I wonder if we could do a permissioned thing on a privacy first blockchain that lets you sign messages and reveal data in a permissioned manner. I'm like, that would be perfect. Right? I go to a new hospital, like, I have my health records. Don't worry. Boom, 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 sign, make it available to the new hospital or a new doctor or whatever. But I have storage of those health records on the chain. And it's like, well, in the US, you can't do it because of the way HIPAA compliance is structured. And similarly, you can't do it in Canada either. Similar but different law. And I was like, well, it was worth a shot.
It's a
I thought I had $1 billion idea.
right, like these problems have existed for a while, and it's it really sucks that we don't have this. It's definitely something that besides some legal problems, I obviously am not an expert, would be great for public hospitals and public healthcare. I would say this is a actually a very interesting topic for me, and we can talk about it completely off the record. But uh, healthcare being, at least in the US, functionally a business, means that any kind of convenience that you want to introduce for people to switch healthcare providers is absolutely not something anybody would buy, because that means that customers leave and customers are more empowered. You don't want those. You don't want those
Yeah.
customers empowered. You want those customers enslaved and staying to your hospital. In fact, it is better if all of your systems are proprietary and nothing transfers.
Yeah. Yeah. We're well aware up here of we hear the horror stories. We hear the good stories too. Outcomes can be fantastic if you have great insurance and or if you can afford top-notch doctors and to go to a specific hospital where the doctors you want to meet with, experimental or top in their field or whatever, top surgeons. That's great. And that's the way it operates down there.
And
I'm
then I
not a
love your
fan of
idea. Just to be clear, I love your idea, and I wish it happened. And it's actually a really great use for the blockchain, uh, permission ledger. But unfortunately, the incentives of the economic structure of the healthcare system uh, probably do not make that product as popular as the end consumers wish it was.
which ultimately is fine because it would sell it could potentially sell well in almost any other country in the world that
Maybe
does
it's
have that
possible.
does have strong publicly funded healthcare. Here certainly in Canada, the National Health Service in the UK, most Western European countries. Less so in, like, I think Switzerland, Germany, Singapore certainly, but like there are large swaths of the world where this would fly. But anyway, that's, like I said, that's a whole startup idea that I don't really have time for anyway. But I was like, this would be so cool, and then maybe I can do a bunch of fundraising and then pay a bunch of other people to build it and run it, and I'll just be the shareholder and founder, or primary shareholder and founder.
Sure,
But
sure.
anyway, all
That's
right, we got to wrap up here. Sorry.
that's a topic for another day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Different podcast. Okay, I want to ask two more, hopefully quick questions here, and then we can let you go. So, okay, you mentioned a chain earlier. I'm logged into Sentient Chat now. Crypto is front and center. Is this leading to a grid labeled or sentient labeled layer one blockchain later on? Like, what's the I guess coordination mechanism for all of this in the long run?
Right. So the I want people to understand that AI on chain can mean many different things. And so AI on chain, in terms of all the queries and decentralized compute, like, that's not what we're doing. What we're
Right.
doing is we are representing AI products and artifacts on chain, and also we are bringing on chain the builders and the contributions and so on. So Sentient Chat is just a portal to try the different repositories, different products on Grid. And the Grid itself is the protocol for the chain. It's a collection of smart contracts. It's a collection of campaigns and incentives, and a collection of all these ecosystem partners, and so on and so forth. And grid is the center of the universe in that sense. And so when we launch our chain, we will have the smart contracts that enable builders to get ownership and rewards. We'll have contracts that enable artifacts to be staked on, and the community to support the developers and support the owners of these artifacts. And so that is the kind of functionality of the grid, and we'll have a big emission economy to make sure that the stakers get their share of the rewards as well, with a certain percentage commitment of our token emission. So when that chain launches, that is the kind of incentive layer for the entire grid, where on the top you have this the second part of the grid, which is all the off-chain stuff, like all these repos and developers, and then we bring all of the incentives on chain.
Okay, cool. So, when we talk about the intersection of AI and Web3 blockchain, it can get really, really complex, like you just said. Even just defining what does it mean to bring AI on chain, that means different things to different people. What do you think is ultimately? I guess you probably already talked about this quite a bit, but like, is ownership and decentralization, like the major unique advantage to this approach, or do you think there are other ones that are like, that Sentient's really bringing to the fore, and like this is how we really differentiate Sentient from closed source models, generally speaking, but potentially from other competing solutions?
Well, what differentiates Sentient from closed source models is that we're open source. Has no
That's true.
relevance to the protocol, right? We're competing with Web2 AI companies. Like we are an AI company that also have happened to develop a long-term sustainable protocol that we believe is the way to like get developers to come under one umbrella and one goal and actually build amazing frontier AI. We are at the end of the day are an AI research lab, and protocol is a means to that end, to advancing AI research. The reason why we believe the protocol is the solution, is the means to that end of building frontier open source AI systems, is because people cannot be trusted. And that's why blockchain was always in the conversation from the very beginning. It's
Right.
because people cannot be trusted. Institutions cannot be trusted. First it was banks. Now you can say we've branched out to every single corner of industry, and you have blockchain for healthcare. You have blockchain for finance, the original proposal. Blockchain for games. Blockchain for AI. And so the premise of why we want the protocol is because people cannot be trusted. And if we as Sentient for some reason would betray our own mission, kind of like OpenAI did. OpenAI has betrayed their mission of being a nonprofit. They're now a gigantic corporation that is quickly capturing distribution, opening up new monetization channels, and
Yeah.
are very quickly becoming extractive. And they're talking about advertisements. That is not a nonprofit to me. That is not even close. They're playing the Facebook game now. And
Right.
so when I look at a player like OpenAI, I think these guys are have betrayed their mission. And so Sentient, kind of following following in the footsteps of these closed source companies, and actually beating these closed source companies on some of our research, and actually becoming a serious player in the game, and getting those benchmarks out, and beautiful frameworks for builders out. We will obviously have the temptation. Our revenue goes up, like this traction goes up, just like any other company. Suddenly, from a business and product perspective, oh we keep this closed source and we keep this way, etc. And then we start
Right.
betraying mission. And the protocol, the way that it is designed, is to make sure that mission is stuck with. it makes sure that Sentient itself, as just a small player in the, that's what I want like people to understand. Sentient ideally in the future is actually just one player in this protocol. What one part of hundreds and maybe thousands of companies and tens of thousands of companies that have come together and are using the grid to incentivize people to develop and also to get traction to their products. So Sentient will be one participant in the grid that wants to keep their stuff in the open source such that people are continuously building and forking and improving and accelerating the speed of the product development and really um, getting as much out as possible of this open source monetization model. And we want other people to come and join and also follow through with that open source monetization model because it works. It works. Many billion-dollar companies were built on open source monetization models. And I think grid is that missing piece, that protocol is the missing piece that allows people to actually get the money they need to get jump started and get the support they need and get the developer community they need and go and build something crazy. And in that sense, the use of our protocol is very generic. You can apply it to any other industry, but for us, it is all about AI, and we should be focused on AI first, and that's what we'll do.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna ask my last question, and it's a little bit more forward looking. As you
Sure.
look into the rest of this year, in 2025 and into 2026, what product milestones or ecosystem shifts at Sentient are you most excited about?
Oh, I'm excited about so many things. We have amazing partnerships in store. I cannot say them before they're officially announced. I cannot say them, but I think everybody already understands that we as an AI company are working with top tier research labs, both academic and industry labs, startups in AI all over the place in the US, in India, and we're also talking to a few people in Europe. I think we will get a lot of traction in the coming year. There's a lot of excitement that we're hearing when we talk about the grid and the protocol. And a lot of these open source developers really want a place like it to go and have a community around common goal. I think right now there does not exist a company that actually does anything related to this. There's companies that are trying to do bounties for development, but that's it's very limited. We are actually a research company that are also building these things. So we have a lot of skin in the game. So I'm very excited for all of the partnerships and all the support that we're getting from these top tier AI research labs. I'm very excited for the formal release of the protocol and the blockchain. I'm very excited about all of these artifacts. First of all, coming to Sentient Chat, but also being repackaged and rebuilt into other powerful open source AI applications so that Sentient Chat is not the only one. There may be 5 and 10 and 20, and each application has its own purpose and kind of its own target audience. And people will be able to come and use them. And a lot of these applications will not be built by us, they will be built by the community. And these guys will be free to monetize them however they want, making sure that the part of the revenue through emissions and the staking economy goes back to the people who built all of these subcomponents for those powerful AI products. I'm very excited for the growth of the ecosystem first and foremost. I'm also excited about just the general positioning of Sentient. People working for a company really need to drink their own Kool-Aid, as the people say. The problem with me is that I don't drink Kool-Aid, right? Either I believe in something or I don't believe in something, and I will not sugarcoat anything. But Sentient it really deserves where it is. It really deserves the position it has. And the position it has is very simple. You do not have a player right now anywhere. You do not have a player that has any AI applications that are open source that are as powerful, or let's say even 70% as powerful as what OpenAI or Google or Perplexity have.
Right.
Actually, and when you think about what these products are doing and what they will continue doing is they will continue building walled gardens that prevent developers from exiting, prevent users from exiting. They will try to tie you into their ecosystem. I'm tied to the Apple ecosystem. I'm taking this call through a MacBook. I have an iPhone in my hands. I have an iPad next to me, and then I have an iMac and at a different house. And so like this Mac Apple ecosystem locked me in because everything kind of works together. But yet, the entire world runs on Linux. The entire
Yeah, it does.
world runs on Linux. And so when you think about that idea and realize that there is no open source product solutions for people to take, customize, build, and do whatever for local hosting, for customization, for privacy reasons, etc., then you recognize that Sentient not only deserves to exist in the space, but in fact it must exist and must claim a gigantic market, which is the open source AI product market. That is what we're going for. And I think that come 2026, you will see many more products coming out from us, including not just a chatbot, but app, browser, newsletter, like all the different products that you would see on the closed side. All of those products on the open source side are, we know, in demand by all of these enterprises and business customers. And so all of it will go and will join the grid, and people will be able to fork and build and improve and use, and we'll have the hosted versions for people to subscribe to and customized the way that they want them customized. So it will be a fully extendable and modular ecosystem of software. That's what we're going for. Really excited for it.
Awesome, Oleg. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been an open source advocate for a really long time. I was using Mandrake Linux as my like daily driver on my Sony Vaio laptop back in like 2000, and I'm actually running. I just replaced Windows 11 on my fiance's laptop with which one is it? I don't remember. A Linux distro
Mm.
of some kind, because she didn't need it. Windows 11 ruined her laptop. It was just way too intensive for her old machine. And then, as you were alluding to earlier, all the web servers, the DNS servers, or not all the web servers, but the vast majority of the web servers, application servers, all the DNS servers that run the internet, not just the web, but the internet as a whole. Yeah, they run Linux or some Linux variant. Android's based on Linux. Even macOS is based on a similar Unix variant at its core, and yeah, it really does run the world. So I'm really excited to see this vision flourish, and maybe you can be the next Linus Torvalds, but a little bit friendlier. And yeah, and throughout 2026 we'll continue to see more product launches from you, and as you mentioned, developers building on Sentient. I really need well, I don't need, I'd really like a command line coding agent, kind of like Codex or Claude Code. I really like it. That'd be a lot of fun. So hopefully somebody's building that at Sentient or on top of the grid, and I'll be able to replace Claude Code with that in the not too distant future.
Yeah, sounds good. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you so much for your time. For people who want to learn more about Sentient, where should they go?
They should go to sentient.xyz or sentient.foundation. And from there, you can look at any of our latest releases, products, research, all of the amazing papers that we have published. Actually, one amazing announcement: we've just been accepted to NeurIPS, but not just one paper, but 4 papers got accepted to NeurIPS. And for people who don't know what that is, NeurIPS is a tier 1, extremely competitive AI research conference. So we're very happy that entire 4 of our papers got in there. Let alone one is difficult. So you can find all of that stuff on sentient.xyz, and any of the updates, if you want to stay updated, you go to X. We're very active there. And if you are one of the people who use LinkedIn, we are still active on LinkedIn because that's also our Web2, part of our Web2 platform.
Okay, terrific. Thanks again. And for everybody watching, thank you for tuning in, and we'll keep exploring the AI rainforest through the next few episodes. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.